Can y'all hear me now? Let's see. It looks like it's capturing audio. Thank you for letting me know. Yay. Okay. So we've had a bunch of power outages over the last week. So every time we have a power outage, all of my stuff resets. So I thought I had everything, but the gremlins like to gremlin. So let's start over. Hi, my name is Tracy Lenz. I'm a petroleum engineer. I am the owner of Pecan Tree Inc. We are a oil and gas appraisal firm, and we do a weekly live stream, answering your questions, hitting hot topics, things that I get lots of questions on, things that you have questions on. This is an open Q&A, so feel free to put questions into the chat, and I will try to get to it. And if I don't have a chance to get to it, we'll try to hit it next week. Let's see. Yeah, y'all. So Crystal, I was mentioning, is joining us, but she refuses to have her head on the screen. So we just get to, if I move the camera any, you just get my chair. So that's what it is. Hello, everybody. Let me get rid of that. Let's see. Hi, Martha. Hi, Fred. Hi, Sylvan. Thank you guys for letting me know about the sound. Hi, Alice. And I'm just going to assume Mary is going to watch at some point if she's not already here. So hi, Mary. So today's topic. So I just got back from the NARO conference, so the NARO Texas conference, the National Association of Royalty Owners. There is a annual conference of all the different chapters and a national conference. And the Texas one was just recently here in Austin. So, excuse me, I have a cough. Okay. Now at that, we had a lot of questions. First of all, if I met you at the conference, thank you so much for stopping by. It was great to meet you. We had such a great reception. We always just feel so loved at those things, and we love going. So it's my favorite conference of the year. So I'm glad if I got to see you, if I got to meet you, if you got to stop by. Hi, good to see you. But let's see. The topic for today, though, is something that I think affects probably most of y'all that are watching this. And unless you don't have any gas that produces at all, you're going to have weird things that happen in your gas payments, and it doesn't always make sense. So this is more of a back to the basics type of topic. Why is it that gas could sell for less than $0 per MCF or MMBTU, however you want to be particular about that? Why would they even do that? That was our warm-up question today. So let's go ahead and let's see. I think I popped over to a different thing here, but let me go back to my warm-up question. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Why would a producer actually pay someone to take their natural gas? Fred, I saw your guess, environmental issues. If it's not economic to produce, just turn off the well, right? Like, why is it even possible? So that's what we're covering today. How is it that when on one side of the country, gas is selling for $3-4 an MCF, while in other parts of the country, it's negative? And why is that even possible? Okay. So drop your question in there. We will hit it before we wrap up if you don't already have the answer by the end. Okay, so West Texas gas. This is something probably the majority of our clients, not even our clients, but just statistically, most people in the U.S., the likelihood of them having a West Texas influenced oil and gas well is very high, considering the number of people who have minerals in West Texas. So if you are being affected by that at all, you might have noticed that on the same day that gas was selling at Henry Hub, which is in Louisiana, for around $3, it was selling in West Texas for negative $9. Yes, that is not a typo. And that was the low for that day at that Waha, Index Hub plant, which is a near just southwest of Midland. And so far, we are on track for this to be the most negative year in a while. I didn't check how far it goes back, but this is the most negative year we've had for Waha pricing, which is the West Texas Gas Index. So far, of the 131 days that I pulled this metric in 2026, 118 of them had been negative. While at the same time, Henry Hub, again in Louisiana, was trading between 320 and 370. So that's the national benchmark. Why is there such a difference there? So, I did make an attempt to put this into, hi, Mary. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, y'all literally have pains in the necks, don't y'all? But yeah, this is y'all get a presentation, but this is always an informal presentation. Y'all know this. So we will, I did try to attempt to make it somewhat formal, but okay. Here's the kicker. Just to get to the end, the answer up front. I'm not going to be one of those. This isn't one of those presentations where you have to wait 30 minutes to hear the answer. It's associated gas. The reason that gas goes negative in the Permian is because there's a lot of oil. And when you produce oil, you get gas that comes with it. So they drill for oil, pipelines fill up, and then they have to pay to get rid of that gas in order to sell the oil. So the oil, if you remember, back in March and April, their oil prices went nuts, going above $100 a barrel. And that is, far more valuable than turning off the well and not having the, production for the oil is to pay to have the gas taken somewhere. Cause you can't just vent it off into, the atmosphere. And on that note, Fred, you're probably, that's probably, from that angle, you're probably correct. So the environmental issue, maybe if there were no such things as environmental impacts to natural gas escaping into the air, one might say, oh, just let it vent or flare it and then just sell the oil. But because there's an environmental impact to oil, natural gas going out into the atmosphere, the methane, or if you burn it and it turns into CO2 and water, that all has an impact. You can't just let it out into you have to have it go somewhere. So because of that, they pay to have it taken away from the Permian. So that's the takeaway capacity of the Permian, is the ability to take away gas from the Permian. So you might hear that thrown around quite a bit, the takeaway capacity increasing or decreasing. That is what that's referring to. If I had too much gas, I'd be giving it away too. Was it not Tums? What's the one? Pepto? Just offload some Pepto. Yeah. Okay, let's see. So just to put it in a little more perspective, the Gulf Coast has the LNG exports. It has data centers nearby. It has the East Coast is closer than in West Texas. So West Texas is much further from the areas where they're needing the gas. So that is one of the issues. And then the other issue is the pipeline capacity. So there is increasingly, efforts to provide more capacity to take that gas away. One of the big pipeline efforts that is going to open, the estimate is October, is the Blackcomb pipeline. So if you see natural gas pricing suddenly go up in expectations in October for the West Texas area, it's because this pipeline, there's a couple other projects coming online, but this one is going to get gas from West Texas down to Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi is one of the major natural gas exports, that's a simplistic way to say it, LNG, right? All of this is to get it to places that can utilize the gas. So this is one of the ways. So this is a major takeaway capacity pipeline. In terms of volume, this is a slightly older graph, but if you 2024, so not that old, but just as a reference, end of 2024 is when this was put together. each pipeline project is a wedge here. So it's the amount of gas that can get out of the Permian. And these two wedges up here, well, three, technically there's one more here, but this Blackcomb pipeline is this wedge here. And then the Hugh Brinson, I cut off the end of the word there, but the Hugh Brinson is the other project that's coming online. But those two things are contributing to making gas, gas should be available to get to the right markets soon. And so you see something like this with the forward natural gas prices. Right now we are, if we're looking down here, we're in April and May, we're very, very negative. So right here is zero. Like we've been below zero for natural gas prices in West Texas for a while. It is expected to go gradually up as you get to the end of the year, as those two pipelines come on. And then the expectation is that you'll probably get a little bit of winter effects of gas just being worth more in the winter as you go into the winter. And then, we tend to overproduce in general as a industry. And then also you go into the summer months and it'll dip back down. So that's generally what the forecast is right now. And that's why. So this spike here, that was the freeze that went through the entire nation pretty much and caused, gas prices to go crazy because everybody needed to heat their homes. So that's what happens when you get weather. So to a smaller effect, we're having that happen in here, and no one needs it in that area here, so it's negative. So in me, I like my analogies. So let's see. Should we do analogy first? Yeah, we'll do analogy here. So if you've ever been to any marketplace or gone to a part of the country where they farm strawberries, or if you go to a place where there's no fruit, like you're just in a what do they call that, a grocery desert or a food desert, where it's really hard to get fresh fruit and vegetables, versus if you go to a farm to market, like in the middle of the country, every other road that you go down, there's a strawberry like stand or a watermelon stand or something. If you're very, very far from the market and there's a bunch of competition of other people trying to sell the same thing, you're going to get those like, oh, you can buy 3 pounds of strawberries for 5 cents. And then if maybe strawberries actually isn't the best example of this. We're in the middle of summer. And so I assume that someone out there somewhere who probably is watching this, knowing my normal demographic, planted too much zucchini. That is the classic, oops, I did not realize how productive zucchini was. I can't give this stuff away. I have too much squash. So every new gardener ends up planting too much like zucchini or squash in some point, and they're like, I can't eat this much squash. Nobody around me wants this squash. I can't pay to have people take it away. But unlike squash, you can't just like throw it out in your compost. You actually have to pay someone to take it away. So it's like, that is what we're talking about. However, if you were in one of those food deserts and there was no food around and people were like, oh, I'm so hungry, and you're like, oh, I have this load of squash with me, or I have all these strawberries. It's the typical thing that when you go to a baseball stadium or a theme park and suddenly, an apple costs $5, right? That is what is happening with the gas. So it's not, I don't consider it, what do they call it not extortion. When you increase the price because there's like a sudden shortage and you're taking advantage of people, it's somewhat like that, but this is just market dynamics, like supply demand dynamics, this is macroeconomic type of stuff. I also wanted to show a little bit on, I know that a lot of people don't realize that wells produce both oil and gas. So, if you have your typical West Texas oil well, this is producing oil. However, when you're like, if we were to zoom in on what's going on here, there's multiple pipes coming off of this. Even just this is a relatively simple well. So this is a pump jack, in case you aren't curious. This is the fluid that lubricates, or the fuel for the engine and whatnot. This is unrelated to what it's producing. So you have, this is just a rod that's running up and down and helping suck the oil out from the pipe that goes down. So this is just pulling oil up. But with that, when you pull that oil up, it releases some gas. And so some of these pipes are connected to a piping system that goes underground. And some of these pipes are taking the oil and the liquids and going another direction. And sometimes they combine them all together if there's not enough gas that it needs to be separated. But you end up with something that roughly looks like this, as a very crude diagram. Haha, crude. So the you have your wellhead in production. And you end up getting three components off of that. So you pretty much always have some type of liquid and some type of gas. It's just the amount that you're dealing with, like, depends on what other things you need. Normally, there's also some amount of water that comes along with the oil and the gas, but the water is dependent on what type of area you're in and what type of wells you're dealing with. A lot of these newer horizontal wells, they are completing the wells, completing downhole by like, you okay there, Crystal? They're completing the wells by pumping a whole bunch of water down there to break open the rock and to send the sand down in order to prop open those fractures they're making, the proppant. And so they're pumping down a bunch of water, and what goes down must come back up. And so it produces a lot of water from that respect, but also there's water in the rock. In the same nature that if you were to drill down, you eventually get into water wells and you get to the water table. All of these rocks were at the water table at some point and they've been pushed down. So water is in almost every single rock. That's not, extremely dry and at the surface anyway. So every reservoir is assumed to be water wet. There's a couple that are preferentially oil wet, but most of them are water wet. Most of them have water within the little grains of sand that make up the rock. And then the oil just comes and replaces some of that water. So when you produce the oil, a lot of times you'll get water that comes along with it. And then depending on the reservoir, you might get a lot of water or you might get just a little bit. So short lesson, you usually get a 3-stream production that comes off of any well. So when you produce oil, you have to do something with the gas. Now, normally you are able to gather it and stabilize it and compress it and treat it and get any additional liquids off of that gas. And then you send it to, maybe you have a storage facility that's like a very small one. It's very hard to store natural gas. You're typically dealing with more of just temporary storage and in order to get the pressure up to what you need it. And then it needs to go to some end user that's very close by. And normally that is through a pipeline. You cannot really, you can theoretically, but you don't put natural gas onto a truck and haul it away. You don't put it onto a rail cart and haul it away. It has to go through a pipeline or else it just does not travel. This is all gas in the same form of like air, in the same way that it's when you buy helium in a tank, you don't get that much. Like, it doesn't take long before all the balloons are, filled up and the helium tank's empty, right? It's because it's very hard to store gas. Because anytime you start to try to store it, you end up getting pressure. And then you have all of this pressure in a tank that, pressure likes to normalize itself. And that's typically what we call explosions. So very dangerous to store gas in any significant volumes. While oil and liquid, we all know how, storing of liquids work. You just put it in a tank and it sits there. Now there is pressure that you can put it in, but it's much harder to pressurize a liquid than it is a gas. So you don't get as many like kabooms when it comes to pressurized liquids as you do pressurized gases, because there just comes a point it's harder to pressurize. So most of these tanks are just normal pressure tanks. There is, each separator and tank kind of runs at its own pressure, but it is much closer to maybe like a pipeline pressure. I'm going too much in the weeds. I said early on, this was a high level thing. Sorry. Or as Whitney would say, sorry. But in other words, it's easier to get the oil places than it is gas. So while you could put the oil on a railroad cart and send it across the country to California, you could put the oil on a tanker and send it, or a truck. Trucking of oil is one of the first ways that usually people get oil off of a well site. So from the storage to the crude oil end user, which is, it's usually a plant, honestly. But most of the wells, let's see, I'm thinking through, most of the facilities I've worked, it was either probably 50-50 of trucking versus piped. So whether the oil's being piped to a processing facility or if it's being trucked to a facility. But all that to say, you need pipelines to get stuff out of the Permian. And when you have oil going to like $100 a barrel, it's just going to be so much more economic to produce it and then get rid of the gas somehow. So Martha, that is why I mentioned, Martha says, duh, I picture gas as a liquid, like gas for car. That's why I mentioned gas being like an air like air. In the same way that helium is a gas when you get it from the store in one of those little tanks. That's the type of gas we're talking about when we say natural gas. The gas that goes in a car, gasoline, that falls into either a crude oil bucket or this NGLs bucket. Here we go. Either a crude oil bucket or an NGLs, natural gas liquids. So gasoline is typically a mixture of crude oil and NGLs. But gasoline is a liquid. Like you can spill that on your shoe. You can't spill natural gas on your shoe. If you don't pump natural gas at a gas station, you pump gasoline at a gas station. That is a very common thing to mix up. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Thank you, Martha. And let's see, what else do I have for... Yeah, we talked through this, how the recovery timeline is roughly the second half of 2026. Let's see, I did have one more graphic. Let's see if I can pull it up relatively quick. I don't know if I can. I don't have it open. But basically, if you were to plot the oil price alongside this negative pricing here, oil price is directly inverted to what gas is doing, which just goes to show it's the associated gas causing this. All right, I think that is the topic that I have and all the slides that I really wanted to go for. Let me know if there's any questions on your specific market and I can go into that. As it is, if you want to follow what gas is doing, I would go to Natural Gas Intelligence or West Texas gas is a very common news topic, so you should be able to find updates and articles on what West Texas gas is doing. Mary, you say, yep, me too, Martha, wondering about all the tankers seen at drilling pads in West Virginia. Yeah, so the tankers, in the same aspect I said, you can haul oil, you can also haul water. So on the back of the tankers, if you ever are curious, there should be a number if it's hazardous material. And that number should corresponds to what fluid is inside of it. And let me pull up an example, and just in case you're curious. Let's see, hazardous waste. Trucking signage. Okay, so I was looking for a good example that labeled what each one was, but let me go to y'all have seen this before. I'm just looking for a good example. Okay, we'll throw it into my presentation here. So y'all have seen these, right, on the back of trucks. And if you see this number, so old versus new system, right? You might have seen these kind of do two different things. Hi, Kiona. And then let me grab a couple other examples. Yeah, you'll probably see this on any oil and gas, like new area, just because you're going to have a lot of different chemicals and components and things that are being trucked to the pads and away from the pads. And as they produce the oil or as they produce the water, they'll need temporary ways to haul away the water if it's just a temporary job they're doing, or they'll need maybe they're building the pipeline still, and so they're trucking the oil in the meantime. Maybe they only have the facilities built out to be a certain size, and for that time frame in between it producing more than the facilities can handle, they are maintaining it through like a temporary measure with trucking. But this, you can look up what these numbers mean, and it will tell you what chemical is inside. And I believe 1268 is oil, like just regular oil. I think that's what I have in memory, but don't test me on it. Maybe it's 1203, but I know that the 12s is the one I normally associate with oil. Placards. Thank you, Kiona. Yes. You can tell that I'm on the upstream side. The midstream part is like, that's where I know. Those are hazardous material placards. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah. So now y'all know what to Google if you're trying to figure out what is being tanked away from your wells. Let's see, Martha, you had. Is anyone going to the Narrow East Conference in Ohio end of September? I have registered. Martha, I saw your email on that too. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to go. So we'll see if I'm able to squeeze it in. There's a lot going on in October, September. It's like everybody has all their conferences and meetings all at the same time. But I'm gonna try to go. We'll be there in spirit, if nothing else. Let's see. 1268 Petroleum. Yay! I was right-ish. I think I also hedged my bets on 1203, right? So there's a couple others that you'll see quite frequently. But yeah, if you're ever trying to, probably most of us will see the ones that label gasoline more often than any other one, because those are the ones going to fill up the tanks at your normal pump stations, like the normal gasoline Citgos and Chevrons and are there Citgos anymore? Did I just date myself there? No. All right. So what other topics and questions would y'all have? I don't mind ending this one a little early, but I can go over a little bit of the stuff that was covered at the Narrow Texas conference, but a lot of it was special topics that I'd like to cover in more depth by their own. We do have a new product that we launched at Narrow Texas, and I'm going to do a full overview of the new product. It's called Pecan Essentials, and it is the essential things that we think that oil and gas owners should know, what your well is producing, what it should have been making in terms of revenue, and if there's anything going on in the area. So we think that there's very certain things that at a minimum you should know. So we package that as Pecan Essentials, but it deserves its own special rollout. And I kind of want to highlight it all in one go. So make sure to subscribe if you want to hear and see more about that. We also have information on our website, and it is available to test out if you would like to subscribe. Right now it is $100 a month, but we're always running promotions on it because it's brand new. So that is our sponsored segment, sponsored by yours truly, our company. So I might end it early. Do y'all have any requests for our next topic? Like I said, we're going to do the essentials overview. I have a couple more planned out because there's a couple things that are part of essentials, like metrics and insights that we want to get y'all real familiar with and know what to look for, know how to review your own items and review your stuff. But yeah, I think that's all I have for today. It's been a really busy week. I'm kind of catching up from all of the activity from last week. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. But thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Tracy Lenz. Our website is pecantreeog.com if you want to know more about us, see our history, see our products, see our services. And then our app is pecanestimate.com. That's where you can sign up for a portfolio. You can manage your minerals. You can, if you're a buyer, if you're an investor, then you can learn more about the services we offer. So yeah, thank you, Fred. I look forward to telling you all about it. Again, I kind of wanted to do it today, but there just wasn't enough time to pull together a proper presentation, and it deserves a proper presentation. So, I got one more comment here. Keanu says, I got a call, so delayed, but still want to respond. Placards, 1267 for petroleum, crude oil, 1268 for petroleum distillates, or, it went away. 1270, 1202 for fuel, diesel fuel or fuel oil. Yeah, so there you go. Kiona is knowledging us up. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think I remember you're on obviously you know your stuff when it comes to the marketing and trucking side of it. So thank you for sharing that. Mary, thanks for asking. So where we are, we didn't get any flooding. We just got a lot of rain. But yeah, we are east of where all the flooding happened. So thankfully we didn't get affected by that. But definitely there's almost everyone in the central Texas and west was underwater almost literally. And then all of our lakes are filled up. But yeah. Yes, thank you, Kiana. All right. Well, Crystal, do you want to say anything? Crystal. Nope, she's asleep. Sorry. Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much for joining. Oh yeah, your family down south. Fred, you say your family's okay. That's good. Yeah, there was a ton of flooding. I mean, I think I saw 30, 40 inches in some areas, and that's more than their yearly totals normally. So, yeah. Prayers and recovery to all of them. and there is more rain coming the Texas way, so prayers for them too. It is, and when it rains, it pours. But okay. Sorry, too soon. Okay, with that, I should go. All right, thanks, y'all. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next week.